On Friday, Donald Trump committed a reckless act of war by assassinating one of the top members of Iran's government, the commander of Iran's Quds Force, Qasem Soleimani, in Iraq, which is a nation that we're theoretically supposed to be allies with. As I pointed out on Twitter, much to Ben Shapiro's chagrin, this would have been the equivalent of Iran just drone striking Mike Pompeo and killing him at an airport and then claiming it was self-defense, because that's what the United States is doing. An absolute provocation of war. And it doesn't matter if Soleimani is a bad guy. You know who else is a bad guy? Trump. Pompeo. It doesn't mean we assassinate heads of state. Mohammed bin Salman is a bad guy and Trump treats him like his BFF. By that standard, we could have had Trump, Obama, Bush. They could have all been assassinated on the spot because they committed war crimes too, technically by international law. So this was just a reckless usage of United States military brutality, the very brutality that progressives like Ro Khanna warned would happen after we just passed the National Defense Authorization Act, again giving the president unlimited powers of war without congressional approval, after they stripped Khanna and Matt Gaetz, by the way, his amendment too, that would have barred Trump from using federal dollars for any military action against Iran without congressional approval. Here he is last year in 2019 bemoaning the passage of the NDAA.
I rise in strong opposition to this defense authorization. There are many things that you can call the bill, but it's Orwellian to call it progressive. The bipartisan provision to stop the war in Yemen, stripped by the White House. The bipartisan amendment to stop the war in Iran, stripped by the White House. The bipartisan provision to repeal the 2002, the George W. Bush authorization for the war in Iraq, which is sending our troops overseas, stripped by the White House. At some time, we can't just rhetorically give standing ovations when the president says we're going to end endless wars and continue to vote to fund them. It wasn't just President George W. Bush who committed the biggest blunder of foreign policy in the 21st century by sending us to Iraq. It was the abdication of this body, with many members of Congress who voted right with him. My question is, when are we going to listen to the American people? When are we going to do our Article 1 duty and stop funding these endless wars and start funding our domestic priorities?
Yeah, damn straight. But don't worry, the foreign policy establishment is here to nuance troll Ro Khanna and say why actually passing the NDAA without any safeguards to stop this insane human being who is our president wouldn't have done anything. So why try at all? William Weschler, director of the Rafik Hariri Center and Middle East Programs at the Atlantic Council, told Vox that Khanna's assertion that his amendment would have legally barred Trump's actions was incorrect. The bottom line is the language as written, as designed, still had carve-outs for the War Powers Act and the ability to protect Americans from imminent threat. And that is what the Trump administration has claimed is their rationale for this. Weschler said, the inherent legal right to self-defense exists under international law. One gaping problem there was no imminent threat. None whatsoever. That's just a lie. There was no self-defense. We are the ones who pulled out of the nuclear deal that was agreed on by the entire world, re-escalated tensions with Iran. We are the ones who have our military bases stationed around Iran, and they then can't stop blaming them for attacks they probably didn't even do, threatening war, like the tanker attack. And yes, Hezbollah killed an American military contractor, but there is zero evidence that that was at the direction of Soleimani. And do you know how many civilians Pompeo and Trump are directly responsible for killing? If this standard was applied to them, they would have both been killed immediately. But no, the United States, our foreign policy is defined by supreme arrogance and aggression. Especially under the Trump administration, we're always exempt from the standards that we place on others. And, Soleimani, again, a bad guy. We don't need to keep doing that caveat, but he was beloved by his country because he was leading in the fight against ISIS. Yeah, Iran is Shia, ISIS is Sunni, and this was the response here, you'll see here, to his death on the streets of Iran because he was so aggressive in fighting against ISIS. Yeah, that's how many people came out to mourn him. That's how many Iranians are going to despise the United States government as a result of this. more than they already did, with our sanctions and all of that. He was made a martyr all because of United States belligerence under Trump and refusal of Congress, really led by Democrats, to step up and limit these powers. Jeez, we're going to need a lot of help from some divine deity, because Iran is quadruple the size of Iraq. If we were to go to war, it would be the war of all wars with untold human cost. Obviously, no war with Iran, please.